In Winterfell, Arya confronts her sister about the letter she found, asking Robb to swear fealty to King Joffrey following the arrest of their father. Sansa defends herself by saying that she was just a scared little girl, forced to write the letter by the Lannisters, thinking it was the only way to save their father. But Arya is not swayed, since she was also a little girl, but would not have betrayed their family, and later mentions Lyanna Mormont, who, like Arya, would be unlikely to accept Sansa's excuse. The Lady of Winterfell then argues that Arya should be grateful, claiming that she is responsible for taking back their home, since the Knights of the Vale rode north on her behalf. She then mentions her suffering at the hands of their enemies, and that Arya would never have survived what she'd been through. Arya is entirely unfazed by the remarks, saying that Jon would not be upset by Sansa's actions, but that the Lords of the North might turn against her, seeing it as a betrayal. Terrified that Arya has learned her secret, Sansa meets with Littlefinger, who continues his manipulations, pretending he does not know how Arya found the letter, and downplaying the threat, even mentioning that Brienne of Tarth is sworn to protect both girls, and would not allow them to harm each other. Most likely he says this not to reassure her, but to remind her that Brienne will be an obstacle if Sansa decides to eliminate Arya as a threat. Sansa then meets with Brienne and sends her away to King's Landing, where she will represent the North in a meeting with Queen Cersei. Brienne insists on leaving Podrick behind to protect Sansa and her sister, but is refused, forced to leave for the south at once. Later, Sansa enters Arya's room, searching for the letter, but instead finds her faces. Arya then appears and explains the purpose of the faces, having been taught to live in the skin of another during her training as a faceless man in Braavos. She also mentions that she could replace Sansa if she wanted to, threatening her sister before leaving the room. On Dragonstone, Daenerys is worried about Jon Snow and Jorah, with Tyrion commenting that Jon may have feelings for the Queen. Daenerys tries to brush the comment aside, saying Jon is too little for her, only to immediately realize she just insulted Tyrion. As they discuss the dangers in meeting with Cersei, Tyrion explains that his sister is likely to be insulting and provocative, but Daenerys must not be pushed into acting impulsively. When the Queen counters by saying that Aegon Targaryen used fear and violence to conquer the Seven Kingdoms, Tyrion explains that she cannot break the wheel of power in Westeros if she models herself off the man who built the wheel in the first place. When the discussion turns to her safety, Daenerys becomes upset, lashing out at Tyrion, who suggests she should consider the matter of succession. Daenerys is unwilling to discuss the issue, even angrily accusing Tyrion once again of conspiring with his siblings before walking away. Beyond the Wall, as Jon Snow marches alongside 12 companions on a mission to capture a wight from the army of the dead, the King in the North discusses the Dragon Queen with Tormund Giantsbane, mentioning that she will only support them if he bends the knee. Tormund reminds him of Mance Rayder, who died bravely, refusing to kneel to King Stannis, but then states that many wildlings died because of his pride, suggesting that perhaps Jon should submit to Daenerys. Later, Jon discusses the death of Jeor Mormont with Jorah, offering to return Longclaw to the Mormont family, but Jorah insists that Jon keep it and pass it on to his children. Jon also speaks to Beric Dondarrion, who'd been brought back from death 6 times, bonding over their shared experience. And while Beric admits he does not know why they were brought back, he says they are soldiers fighting for life against death. Jon understands, referencing the vows of the Night's Watch by stating that he is the shield that guards the realms of men. After marching for some time, the Hound spots the mountain he saw in his vision, which appears to be the same location where the Children of the Forest originally created the White Walkers. They are then attacked by an undead bear, losing 3 of their companions and gravely injuring Thoros of Myr before Jorah kills the beast. Continuing on, they find a small group of whites being led by a single White Walker and set up an ambush. When they attack and Jon kills their leader, nearly all of the remaining whites are destroyed, leaving only one which is captured. However, the creature screams so loudly, it catches the attention of the larger army nearby. Gendry is then sent back to Eastwatch, with orders to send a raven to Daenerys Targaryen. The other companions, meanwhile, flee for their lives, running across cracking ice, which then breaks under the weight of the pursuing army, losing yet another companion as the undead fall into the freezing waters. With a moat forming around them, they are temporarily protected, but also trapped, surrounded by enemies. Gendry, meanwhile, manages to reach Eastwatch, relaying Jon's orders. After a night out in the cold, the companions awake to find Thoros did not survive the night, burning his body. Jon and Jorah then discuss the collapse of all those undead creatures when Jon killed the White Walker, suggesting a bond between the individual and those they raised from the dead. Beric then mentions that perhaps they should be targeting the Night King, believing that if he is destroyed, much of the army of the dead will fall. fall. Meanwhile, back on Dragonstone, Tyrion begs Daenerys not to leave when she receives the message about the companions beyond the wall, but she ignores him, mounting Drogon and leading all 3 dragons north. As the army of the dead waits for the chance to attack, Sandor Clegane grows bored and starts hurling rocks at the enemy. Unfortunately, one of those stones lands on the ice, revealing that the moat was gone and that the ice had frozen over once more. The undead army then charged in, and a great battle erupts, losing yet another companion in the early fighting and seeing Tormund injured and nearly killed. As Jon drags their captive back to keep him safe, another of their companions comes to help him, killed soon after. With so many of them lost, the remaining companions are completely surrounded and about to be finished off when Daenerys arrives, raining dragonfire upon their enemies, wiping out large portions of the undead army. Jon Snow then continues fighting while Beric, Jorah, Sandor, and Tormund climb atop Drogon with their captive. However, the White Walkers are not deterred by the presence of dragons, and so the Night King hurls a large spear of ice high into the air, striking the dragon Viserion and collapsing him to the ground where he dies. Jon then yells for Daenerys to leave as the Night King prepares another spear, and she reluctantly does so, seeing Jon fall into the freezing water. However, Jon survives and is rescued by Benjen Stark, who rides in and gives up his horse, staying behind to fight off the enemy while his nephew escapes. Jon makes it back to Eastwatch unconscious and awakens to find Daenerys by his side. Although saddened by the loss of her dragon, she is now determined to see the Night King defeated, swearing to fight the White Walkers alongside the North. Jon then declares he will bend the knee and accept her as his queen, and the two share a moment together before she leaves him to rest. Beyond the wall, the White Walkers then order their army to drag Viserion out of the freezing water, and with a single touch, the dragon awakens with blue eyes. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Sir Darren of House Ashford, Sir Rice of the Dreadfort, and Arhael the Silent Blade. If you'd like to help the channel with a monthly donation, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more.